Welcome back to Modern Star Wars Action Figures, the series, with me, your host, Scott Toy Guru Nightlick, and today we get to play everyone's favorite Spectre Creative channel game, Scott Screwed Up. Well, I didn't, destroy the world or anything. Well, not this time. Darn mole men. Anyway, what I screwed up on this time was the ASP Droid. I totally forgot to talk about him when he came out. So he came out with this wave, which was actually one of the coolest waves of all time, with Akbar and the very first Tarkin and, Ponda Baba awesomeness. So this should have been part of episode 18, and he wasn't part of that, as people noted on comments recently. So let's just call this episode 18 and a half, and I'll insert it into the playlist at that point. So if you're jumping on now, hey, watching it live, we get a flashback to ASP. And speaking of flashing back to ASP, what is this clunking thing of metal? Well, ASP worker droid, it's a generic, droid, and that's about all you have to say about this shot. Oh, actually, wait, no, there's a lot more going on. Not only is this a new shot from the special edition, but there's some stuff going on in the background that just does not get talked about enough. First off, there's one of my favorite little mini Star Wars ships, which I fell in love with through the Decipher card game, and I would do a video on the Decipher card game, but I only played it for 1 year, and I don't have any of the cards anymore, and anyway, it was an awesome thing. And why was this ship never made as a toy? This would be a perfect low-price toy. It's awesome. The figures could, come up through the bottom, and you could see them in the porthole. Whatever. Anyway, it's the fun things that A New Hope was just littered with that made it such a lived-in universe. And that universe became even more lived in with the special edition when this shot was added, with the ASP droid picking up some space junk and walking around. But what was also going on in the background was this ship. And if you don't recognize what this ship is, well, you're not alone, because I didn't either when I got it as a present as a child. I had no idea this was even in the movie, but I don't think I cared because it was awesome and big, and it held a lot of figures. It kind of doubled as a storage case, which I wonder if that's why my parents bought it for me. But hey, it was one of the toys I had. I fell in love with it. And even though screwing that top down was always the hardest thing, it always clanked and clacked. I remember being frustrated with that. And actually getting the front and back on too. What am I saying? Did I love this toy or hate this toy? I don't know, but it was part of the collection I had as a child, and that made it special. So seeing it get more screen time in the special edition was actually one of the coolest things about the special edition to me, because I used to think this was a ship that Kenner made up. They made up stuff, as toys all the time. And then as an adult, when I learned, well, I guess maybe a teen or a preteen seeing the movie again after years, realizing it was in the movie. It's when the first transport is away! The first transport is away! And the ship takes off and everybody cheers and, hey, see what I did there? Bonus points for that. All right, so, yep, the Rebel transport on Tatooine, well, another model probably. It's a standard model, much like this droid, and that's kind of the whole point. It's a standard working droid. Very, very little articulation on this guy, though. And I have to admit, it feels not quite like a Star Wars figure, especially just the way it's built. I know the droids are all a little different, but I don't know. I just never fell in love with this one, and the reason I forgot about it is because, well, it wasn't because I don't like him. I store all my figures in these bins in my back room because I just don't have enough room right now to display all of them. And eventually figures started coming out that were too big for the little drawers, so I bought a larger drawer. I actually wound up getting 2 larger drawers. Drawers? Well, either way, figures like the Gamorrean Guards, which actually came out in this wave too, perfect for these because, again, they didn't fit in the small little coffin drawers. And eventually, they also became a good repository for extra Vaders or other figures that I missed along the way that I didn't want to reorder all of the cabinets. All right. Well, the story of ASP7 is he was one of the figures in these oversized drawers because of his shoulders. And I totally forgot when I was doing the wave that he was, because he was buried really far below, really in the back, where I never go. Anyway, so it was an accident. I owe him my apologies. He did not deserve to get left out. But yeah, can't say I think about that figure that much. And it's probably because while it was cool and it definitely had a lot of novelty appeal, especially because there was new content, and it was part of a wave that was absolutely phenomenal. I remember even Dengar was at the top of Toy Fair magazine's most wanted or most hardest to find figure list, and kind of thinking it was funny a few months later when he became a peg warmer. But yeah, when new figures hit, especially when it's a wave like this, it's a really awesome feeling. I remember buying this wave. I remember I got it at Toys R Us. I remember the morning. All right. So yeah, Asp Droid in the movie, and while it was cool that we got new stuff, what I really did love about the Asp Droid wasn't the special edition nod, but what he was in Shadows as Vader's sparring partner. And I always thought it would have been cool if they'd made figure, since they already had the tool, that they could just make the sparring droid ASP that Vader had as a 2-pack or a set with Vader, because there was a whole bunch of stuff in Shadows of the Empire about him fighting these droids that he modified. In fact, the ASP Kenner figure is not the first. The first was a Galoob figure with the Micro Machines that came out along with others, and it was part of how the story was spread over different media. So Vader training with the ASP droid was not necessarily told in the comic book or in the video game, but what was in the video game wasn't in the comic books. And it was this whole thing where Vader was training to take down Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's obviously a movie we're never going to see, unfortunately. Sniff. Well, maybe a Disney Plus show. And I know that I've talked about having rules as part of my collection of what I buy and what I don't buy. And, what can I say? It keeps me sane. It keeps me from buying way too much stuff. And for the most part, I am an original trilogy purist. And by that I mean even pre-special edition. Kind of, to me, that's when Star Wars sort of started changing the special editions. But that's a YouTube video for another time. But Star Wars has been on a lot of journeys over the years since then. But before we had the special editions, we had Shadows of the Empire, which was really the first new major Star Wars content that had come out since, those Ewok movies and since Jedi was in theaters. So this was one of those multimedia events. It was everything but a movie. So you had a comic series, and you had a novel, and you had toy partners, and you had video games, and the whole Megillah, everything but a movie, essentially. And it was pretty cool. And I wound up getting all the figures because at the time it was it was new. And the last time we had Star Wars content, it was, about the Quaker Oatmeal Man. And it was really cool that we were getting something. Oh, and yeah, plus in the video game, you can make Wampas fight to the death. So, that's always a fun thing. And PETA will probably be knocking down my door any minute now for encouraging that. Video game lives matter. All right, moving along. The Shadows of the Empire wave was now safely in my collection, which meant I was officially collecting Shadows of the Empire figures. I don't know. The rules confuse me, and the rules about the rules confuse me. Let's just say I've always had firm rules, but as time has gone by, with more and more figures released, I've had to have even more firm reviews. Firm reviews? Extra firm rules. I really need to, do voice practice beforehand. And yeah, again, protecting my wallet. There's just too much good stuff out there, and I buy it all. And there's been so much non-original trilogy stuff, and I would go all in, but all in on every line is a lot. You have to pick and choose what lines you're all in on these days. I mean, between my He-Man toys and my DC toys and my Marvel toys, and don't show this video to my wife. She'll find out how many toys I actually own. All right, that's why I tried. I tried to stay focused, because that was how you could collect what you want to collect. I mean, in Soviet Russia, toys collect you! Oh, that's a terrible impression. All right. It's a strange hobby. What can I say? And we are all strange people. We like to get figures that represent movie characters that are not in movies, that are in books and comics, and it gets so confusing. And then they wind up in the movie in the special editions. But hey, it was called out on package, so you got to give him props for that. And that definitely, it made him an original trilogy figure. Look at me arguing with myself. I'm like Jack Donaghy in that episode of 30 Rock. But it was cool, and again, there wasn't that much new non-special edition content at that point. ASB7 was more of a display figure for, large displays. I'm sure some kids had a lot of time, bopping him around. But yeah, he's kind of like a Mos Eisley background display action figure, and of course, he comes with his awesome bundle o sticks or control rods. I think they call them on package, which only fit in his hand one way because there's no articulation. They just click right in. I always just thought that kind of dumbed down the figure a little. But the whole concept, the whole figure, I mean, it was new. It was awesome. It was at the moment, at the time, it was something new for Star Wars, and that was a big deal. It's not like today where we get tons and tons of new Star Wars content, starting with the prequels. This was before the prequels, before the dark times. Shouldn't say that, but well, actually, maybe it was a better time to be a Star Wars fan. There was less stuff. You didn't have to know everything. But hey, I did really like the Asp droids, especially because, again, the whole Shadows of the Empire appearance and the fact that that's where they came from. They came from Shadows of the Empire and then showed up in the original trilogy through the special edition. And that is kind of a big deal. That's kind of a thing. There's a certain blue head tentacled Jedi female warrior that followed a similar path. All right, well, as far as Shadows of the Empire, it was kind of a one and done. You almost never hear it talked about anymore today, except in, crazy YouTube videos from even crazier YouTube video makers. But it was cool to live through it. An Asp droid represented that transfer from comic book to screen, and that was a cool concept, because it was early for that to happen. Can't wait for the next Star Wars cruise.